Welcome to The Explainer. So, you've been keeping an eye on the Atlanta housing market, and it's been a bit of a roller coaster. Today, we're going to dig into the January 2026 numbers for single-family homes and figure out what is really going on. Let's make sense of it together.
Okay, let's jump right in with the big question on everyone's mind. Is this market heating up, or is it finally starting to cool down? Well, the latest numbers tell a really fascinating story about a market that's, it's in transition. Let's break it all down.
If there's one number that just jumps off the page, it's this one. Homes are taking a full 27.3% longer to sell now compared to the same time last year. That is a major change in pace, and it's our first big clue that the winds are definitely shifting.
But before we get into why that's happening, we need to get on the same page with a couple of key terms. It's super quick, I promise, but once you know these, you'll be able to analyze this market just like a pro.
First up is months of supply. The absolute best way to think about this is like the fuel gauge in your car. It tells us how much inventory, how much fuel is in the market's tank. A really low number means things are burning hot and fast. A high number means we're slowing way down.
And here's where those numbers get really interesting. See, there are these magic thresholds. Generally speaking, anything under 6 months of supply, that's a seller's market hands down. Over 7 months, and you're in a buyer's market. And that little sweet spot right in the middle, between 6 and 7, that's what we call a balanced market, where nobody has a huge advantage. Next up, we've got this alphabet soup, SOLP. It stands for Sale to Original List Price Ratio, but honestly, what it really tells us is how much bargaining power buyers have. If that number is close to 100%, sellers are getting their asking price. The lower it gets, the more room there is to negotiate. Simple as that.
All right, so with those terms in our back pocket, let's get to the fun part, the nitty-gritty numbers, and see what really happened in the Atlanta market this January.
Okay, hold on to your hats for this one. New listings, brand new homes hitting the market, shot up by more than 60% compared to December. That is a huge wave of new inventory. And honestly, it's the key that unlocks everything else we're about to see.
Now, when you put this January right next to last January, you see this really interesting push and pull. On one hand, buyers have more homes to pick from, which is great. But on the other hand, those homes are sitting on the market longer, a lot longer, 70 days now versus 55. And fewer of them are selling for the original asking price or more.
And this quote just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly illustrates the big theme here. That frantic, gotta buy it right now pace we saw before, it's slowing down. Buyers are taking a breath, being more deliberate, and really taking their time.
But look, any 1 month can be a blip on the radar, right? To really get the full picture, we've got to zoom out and look at the whole 12-month trend. This is what's going to show us the true story of seasonality and where this market is actually headed. This price timeline shows a classic seasonal ride. We started at $432,000 last January, shot up to a peak of $490,000 in May during the spring rush, and then look where we ended up this January. Right back where we started. I mean, to the dollar. So, bottom line, prices are completely flat year over year. But this chart, wow, this one might be even more revealing. Just look at that V shape. Back in May, homes were flying off the market in just 24 days. Now, that number has climbed all the way to 70 days, the longest it's been all year. This is what buyer patience looks like in a chart. Okay, so what does this all mean for you? If you're out there thinking about buying or selling in Atlanta, what's the final call? Let's put all the pieces together and answer that big question. And the key number that helps us answer that is this one, 5.0. That's our months of supply right now. To put that in perspective, that's a huge jump from just 3.0 months back in December and up from 4.4 last January. The market's fuel tank is definitely filling up. So what does that 5.0 number mean? Well, technically, because it's still under that 6-month line, we're still in a seller's market. But, and this is a really big but, look at the direction we're headed. The trend is crystal clear. We are moving steadily toward a much more balanced playing field. Which brings us to the main takeaway. It is absolutely a tale of two markets right now. For sellers, the good news is prices are stable and you still have a slight edge. But for buyers, you've got more choices, more time to think, and a lot less competition with fewer bidding wars. It's a complex market for sure, but there are clear advantages for both sides. And all of this leaves us with one final, crucial question to think about as we head into the busy spring season. With more homes for sale and buyers taking their sweet time, is the balance of power in Atlanta's housing market about to make a major shift? all the signs are pointing that way. The only question is how far and how fast that pendulum is going to swing.